The doors of this library are open now, and all are welcome. The judgment of history is left to you, the people. I have no fears of that, for we have done our best, and so I say, come and learn from it. My fondest hope is that Americans will travel the road extending forward from the arch of experience, never forgetting our heroic origins, never failing to seek divine guidance as we march boldly, bravely into a future limited only by our capacity to dream.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's Live From at the Reagan Library. Remember, we do these on the first Wednesday of every month. On November 4th, 1991, President Ronald Reagan stood alongside 4 U.S. presidents, President George H.W. Bush, President Ford, President Carter, and President Nixon, and officially opened up the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library Museum. It was the first time in history that 5 U.S. presidents had gathered at the same place at the same time. Each one was joined by their wife, and we also had Lady Bird Johnson here, so there were 5 presidents and 6 first ladies. In honor of the Reagan Library's 31st anniversary, just 2 days from now, we thought we would have fun on this Live From and take live questions from you. So feel free, ask questions about the Reagan Library, about Ronald Reagan, anything you want, put them in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer all of them, as many as I can. So again, this is up to you. So go into our comment section below, ask any question you may have about the Reagan Library or President Reagan. I will do my best to answer them. But first, just to give you some time to think about what question you might want to ask and to put it into the comment section, we went onto our social media channels and took some of the questions that you all have been asking the past couple of weeks. I have them here in my hand, and I'm going to give you those answers now. So someone wrote in, fun question, what is the relationship with the USS Ronald Reagan CVN-76 and the Reagan Library? Well, the USS Ronald Reagan CVN-76 is a Nimitz-class nuclear warship. It's in service by the U.S. Navy, and it's the 9th in its class. However, it is the first ship that's a nuclear-powered warship that was actually named after a former living president. On March 4th of 2001, the ship was christened. Mrs. Reagan was on hand, and she had a bottle of champagne and broke it against the ship's bow to christen the ship. Then on July 12th, 2003, the ship was officially commissioned. Then Vice President of the United States, Richard Cheney, was on hand to give the formal keynote remarks, but Mrs. Reagan was also there, and she was the one that officially gave the ship its first order, which was man the ship and bring her to life. The Reagan Library has a great relationship with USS Ronald Reagan and the ship itself, the crew, the captain. In fact, just this summer, we hosted about a 6 sailors who came out to tour the Reagan Library. And then we're actually currently, right now, working with the ship's captain on a handful of special projects. Probably the question we actually got most often. There was a handful of you that asked this, and a handful of you asked why we allow speakers like Liz Cheney or Mike Pence to come to the Reagan Library and speak. This is actually one I really wanted to address. When the Reagan Library opened, again, November 4th, 1991, as part of his opening remarks, President Reagan said that it was very important to him that the Reagan Library not just be a place where policymakers interpret the past, but he wanted it to be a place where people debate the future. He also, as we all know, believed so strongly in reaching across the aisle, listening to differing viewpoints, even if those differing viewpoints were on his side of the aisle. And it's very important to us here at the Reagan Library that we fulfill that mission for the president. So we invite speakers from both sides of the aisle, differing viewpoints, all different ranges, and we're very fortunate that we have a plethora of speakers. You know, we have 4 or 5 or 6 speakers every month, and we know that every speaker isn't right for you. So we just ask that you look at our lineup, look at the ones that interest you, and then those are the ones you come in here. And if we have a speaker that maybe you're not interested in, obviously you don't need to come, but maybe that speaker does interest somebody else. And again, it's very important to us to bring these speakers in that have different viewpoints, because that is what President Reagan wanted for his presidential library. Great timely question. Are military veterans free when they visit the Reagan Library? active military with valid ID are free every time they come to the Reagan Library. Veterans receive a $3 discount when they visit, but veterans are always free on Veterans Day. And Veterans Day is just next week on Friday. So please, we encourage you, if you have a veteran in your life or if you're a veteran, come on up on Veterans Day, enjoy all the activities and the programs we have here for you that day, and come enjoy the Reagan Library with free admission. Someone asked, what desk did Ronald Reagan use in the Oval Office? President Reagan, like most US presidents, used the Resolute desk. The Resolute desk came to be because back in the 1800s, a British ship was abandoned. The British ship was called the HMS Resolute. An American vessel came across the ship and actually returned it to the Queen of England in an act of goodwill and friendship. Queen Victoria took the timbers of the HMS Resolute, turned it into a desk, and gifted it to President Hayes, Rutherford B. Hayes, in 1880. Since 1880, the Resolute desk has been used in the Oval Office by almost every president, still being used today by President Biden. Only Presidents H.W. Bush, Johnson, Ford, and Nixon chose to not use it. And when it's not being used, it goes into storage and then comes back out for the next president. Another Oval Office question from one of our subscribers: is your Oval Office replica really the same size as the one in the White House? It sure is. It is exactly to scale. It's 18.5 feet tall from floor to ceiling. The long part of the oval is 35 feet 10 inches. The shorter side of the oval is 29 inches. It is exactly the size, decorated as it was during President Reagan's administration. Fun story, President Reagan wanted a full-size Oval Office replica in his presidential library, and when construction got underway and they were sort of finishing the blueprints, they realized that although we had the floor space for the right width and length of the Oval Office, we didn't have the ceiling height because of the ceiling of the Reagan Library. He wasn't going to be able to get an Oval Office with 18.5 feet tall ceiling. And so the president looked at the contractor and said, well, then you just dig down, right? So they did. So if you visit the Reagan Library, you'll notice that you go downstairs or a ramp to see our Oval Office, and when you're done, you go back up, and that's so that we really can have the correct ratio floor to ceiling of the Oval Office. Let's see what else you guys asked. Did he really have a jar of jelly beans on his desk in the Oval Office? Yes, he did. In the 1960s, Ronald Reagan wanted to give up pipe smoking. He turned to eating jelly beans to keep himself occupied, and he was eating a jelly bean by a company called the Goelitz Candy Company. He became governor of California. The Goelitz Candy Company, also based in California, heard that he was eating them, and they started shipping him monthly shipments of the Goelitz jelly bean for him to have. Well, in 1976, the Goelitz Candy Company changed their name to the Jelly Belly Candy Company and started making Jelly Bellies. And Governor Reagan started eating Jelly Bellies, stayed with the company. And then in 1981, for President Reagan's first inauguration as president, the Jelly Belly Candy Company shipped 3.5 tons of red, white, and blue Jelly Bellies to the White House. They could have them for the festivities. President Reagan had Jelly Bellies all through the White House. They were on his Oval Office desk. They were in cabinet room for meetings. They were in his Air Force One airplane. And his favorite flavor is black licorice. Another great timely question. Someone asked what special exhibitions we have coming up. Next Friday on Veterans Day, so basically just a week from in a couple of days, we are opening up our new temporary exhibit. It's called An American Christmas Story. It is a brand new 5,000 square foot exhibition. If you come to the Reagan Library often, you know that every year we do a Christmas tree exhibition. This is not that. This one is about triple the size that we normally do. It is going to be all new trees, all new decorations. We have over 65 trees on display, one for each state within the United States, one for each territory that the United States owns, and then we have a tree of the White House tree decorated with some of the decorations that President and Mrs. Reagan actually used to decorate their own tree. We have our Air Force One tree, and as always, we have our Gold Star Family Memorial tree. That tree is here to honor those who have lost a loved one in the military, and we invite you, if you're a Gold Star family member, come on up to the Reagan Library and add an ornament of your loved one to our tree. There's actually no charge for you to add your ornament to our tree. If you choose to then also see the exhibition, you have to pay admission, but to just add your loved one to the tree, there is no cost at all. You just ask at our front desk how you do that. So again, American Christmas Story opens next Friday. Also want to make a little small note, next Thursday, so a week from tomorrow, tune in at 9 a.m. on our YouTube channel. We have a very special announcement about the exhibition after American Christmas Story. Someone asked if the plane we have here at the Reagan Library is actually a real Air Force One or if it's a fake. No, it's the real Air Force One. It's a Boeing 707, tail number 27,000. It flew 7 U.S. presidents from President Nixon all the way through the second President Bush. While in service from 1972 until 2001, it flew over 1 million miles. And President Reagan used the plane the most. He used it over 660,000 miles. As we said in last month's Live From, he went to 26 foreign countries. He also traveled to over 150 cities within the United States on that plane. When he was leaving office, he mentioned that he hoped one day when the plane was decommissioned, it would return and retire to his presidential library. In 2001, when the plane retired, someone from the Air Force actually remembered that. It took some doing, but on September 8, 2001, the plane was officially retired, flew its last flight from Andrews Air Force Base to San Bernardino International Airport, where it was gifted on permanent loan to the Reagan Foundation. On that flight was Mrs. Reagan, a handful of crew members that worked President Reagan's Air Force One back in the 1980s, and the then Secretary of the Air Force, James Roach, all on board. Now, this is a great question. I'm not sure who actually knew enough about us to ask this question. Is it true that there are personal mementos of President Reagan inside the horse statue that sits outside the Air Force One pavilion? It is true. If you've been to the Reagan Library and you walked our outdoor grounds and you're near our Air Force One pavilion, there is a very large statue of Ronald Reagan riding his horse, El Alamein, right outside that Air Force One pavilion. We were gifted this sculpture on President Reagan's birthday, February 6th of 2016. The statue is called Along the Trail by artist Donald Reed. And it's quite large statue. It's about 11 feet tall from the ground to the tip of President Reagan's head, and about 11 feet wide from the tip of the horse's nose to the swirled tail, end of the tail of the horse as well. But hidden inside the sculpture is one of President Reagan's belt buckles, as well as an actual piece of the Berlin Wall. The belt buckle and the Berlin Wall are inside of a muslin bag, which is inside of a fireproof Sentry fireproof box, and those are within the horse's belly. Do we have anything in the museum to keep children interested? We do. The kids love Air Force One. Kids love looking at our F-14 and our F-117. We have a lot of interactives. We have a whole green screen room where you can go act a Newt Rockney All-American with Ronald Reagan. You can call a Chicago Cubs game. You can announce a GE theater. Then you can watch the playback. We have multiple interactive game tables where you can learn about state dining and President Reagan's economic policies while just having a really fun time. A lot of places you can pick up wands, listen to Ronald Reagan's early movies, listen to his radio addresses he gave between his years as governor and president. So there's a lot of hand, touch, feel kind of things here in the Reagan Library for kids to enjoy as well. How long does it take to tour the Reagan Library? So it depends if you kind of walk through the library at a fast pace or if you're someone who reads the panels and watches the films. We normally tell people it takes about 2 to 3 hours to tour the Reagan Library. But then if you also are here during a time when we have a special exhibition, that special exhibition could add anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. So you could be here 5 hours if you're also here to see a special exhibition. And again, we do have our cafe for food, so you can break up your day with a really great meal. So we call ourselves a destination, and we have enough here to do to fill your whole day. So speaking of the cafe and filling your day, someone asked if you can visit the cafe without paying museum admission. That's a great question. You sure can. Anything here at the Reagan Library that's outdoors or not a part of the museum proper, you can get into for free. So the cafe is called Reagan's Bistro and Bar. It's open every day from 10:30 a.m. until 3 p.m. And between 10:30 and 3, you can get anything. You can get sodas, coffees, grab and go, sandwiches, salads, things like that. But then from 11 to 2 on the weekends, on the weekdays, and 11 to 2:30 on the weekends, our hot grill is open. You can get a hot sandwich, a hamburger, chicken tenders, anything like that. So again, we welcome you to come on up. But again, you can stroll our grounds. You can see our South Lawn, our White House Rose Garden. You can see our Gold Star Family Memorial. You can see our F-14 fighter jet, our F-117 stealth fighter jet, our tank, the piece of the Berlin Wall, President Reagan's memorial site, and you can go not just into the cafe, but you can go into our store. So all of those things you can do without paying admission. You could even just come up and bring a picnic lunch and sit out on our picnic tables on the grass and just enjoy the views that we have up here at no cost to you. We only charge you if you actually want to come inside and see the actual exhibition. So those are the questions we took off social media. That was a lot of fun. I hope you learned a little bit. Again, I would love to take questions from you. So if you haven't already put a question into the comment box, would you do it now? I am going to put those questions down, pick up our live from, of course, put on my glasses, see if you guys have any questions I can answer. Oh, look, I can see. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in now. I am struggling to make it work. So while I am trying, I know that we had a couple of other questions. Someone asked how many visitors have been at the Reagan Library since you've opened. We've had over 8 million. Here we go. Sorry, my thing was frozen. What else people asked? Do you have any of his clothes on display at the Reagan Library? We do. We have his Letterman sweater from college. We have the actual suit and tie and cufflinks when he gave the Berlin Wall speech, and a handful of other things on display. I might not actually get to see what your questions are. I'm going to try one more time. Here we go. Where are President and Mrs. Reagan buried, Sue? They are buried here on our property, on the west side of our property, out where the Berlin Wall is. President Reagan chose that location specifically when we chose the Reagan Library as the place to build a library, because that location of their burial site faces west, faces the Pacific Ocean. And it's such a beautiful location. He knew right away that's where he wanted to be buried. So let's see, I know there's more questions. It's not loading for me. So what I can always do is go on to this after the live and answer any questions that we see. I'll just answer them in the comments box, because it's not really asking them. The cafe has delicious food. It sure does. While the Reagan Library is extraordinary, Jim asks if there are plans to further expand the library. At this point, there is not. We have over 300 acres, but most of it is not buildable. It's just to protect our view shed. So we are always looking to do new things. Over the past 3 years, we've added the tank, we've added the F-117 stealth. So we're always looking to add new things. I don't know how much really we're planning to expand. As I mentioned a little bit ago, next Thursday, November 10th, we are making a grand announcement of what our next special exhibition is in 2023. And that is something that I think people will really want to see. Those are the questions I'm seeing. I will keep watching, see if any more questions come in. But one of the questions that was launched yesterday, which is a perfect lead into the next section, is, do you have merch? Well, yeah, we have merch. We have an entire Reagan Library Museum store here on property, open 10:30 to 5 every day. And you can also, if you can't get here locally, we have a store online, reaganlibrary.com/store, so you can buy anything online. We even have an Amazon store, so the easy ability of shopping with Amazon at amazon.com/Ronald Reagan. It's important to note that not everything on the Amazon store is what we actually have at the reaganlibrary.com store. So if you want all of our products, you have to come in person, or you have to shop at reaganlibrary.com/store, but there is a good selection on our Amazon store as well. I wanted to share some items, since this is about the Reagan Library and our anniversary. This is the perfect gift. I mentioned that it was the first time on November 4th, 1991, that 5 U.S. presidents had ever gathered at the same place at the same time. A photo was taken of them in our Oval Office replica. We have framed that photo. It's a 14 by 18-inch frame. And then beneath the photo is a brass plaque of each of the president's signatures. It's a great gift. Go in your home or your office. Also speaking about the Reagan Library, this is actually one of our best-selling items. It is a 64-page color pictorial book on all the things here at the Reagan Library, all the different galleries, the Oval Office, the different military vehicles we have here. This is made in the U.S. This is a page about his funeral. This is actually Berlin Wall, printed in the USA. It's a beautiful book, and as I said, it's one of our best sellers. We're also going to share just a couple more things. These are all brand new items we're super excited about. This is a t-shirt with President Reagan's famous "It Can Be Done" saying, with some great photos of the president. So this is a brand new item. We just went up in our store this week, which we're super excited about. And then we just started working with a new, let me move all this, new manufacturer. They create specialty items, and they took iconic things of the Reagan Library. So this is the famous statue of Ronald Reagan by Glenna Goodacre that's outside of our courtyard. This are these statues right here. Our F-117's here, our F-14 is here. I know there's a Berlin Wall on here somewhere. And they've embroidered it onto a pillow. But if a pillow isn't your style, we have the exact, oh, here's the Berlin Wall. If the pillow isn't your style, they've also taken the exact same concept and they've turned it into a really fun carrying bag. All the same, you know, there's the statues, the Berlin Wall. This is the memorial site. Our parking lot, because you know, you want the parking lot. And not only is it a carrying bag, they've even turned it into like a travel case. So for toiletries or makeup or all of your computer cords. So just a really fun, unique way to sort of commemorate us here at the Reagan Library and the things that are here, especially now here for our 31st anniversary. So I want to thank you for joining us. 31 years, it's just amazing, and we can't wait to see what else we do. Hope you all come up and join us. I'm going to end by just touching on a point I did when someone asked the question about if veterans are free. Next Friday is Veterans Day. If you're local, we encourage you to come up. All Veterans Day activities are free. We have a Civil War military encampment. We have military vehicles that are brought up by the military, and kids are able to climb in them and get their picture taken. And then we have a full program that starts at 11 o'clock with an honor guard, keynote remarks by a former U.S. Army intelligence officer, and that program honors all members of our military. It's a spectacular day. Again, all of those activities are free. It only costs if you also want to come in to see the Reagan Library, and again, that is the day that our Christmas exhibition opens, but all veterans and all active military on November 11th are free. So come on out. We hope to see you here. We'll see you next time.
Together we gather for a single purpose: to give to the American people and the world a presidential library. There is understandably a great temptation to look back, to remember, to share warm and fond memories, and to reflect on the events which brought us here. And as we do, I hope we do not unduly focus on one man, one political party, or even one country. Instead, our focus should be on the enduring fundamental principles of life that ennoble mankind. Ever since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, presidents have built libraries, and amidst the surroundings that have shaped their characters and molded their values. From West Branch, Iowa, to the Simi Valley of California, these institutions reflect the genius of the American people for self-government. Within their walls are housed millions of records for scholarly interpretation, along with thousands of objects that give both solid and symbolic substance to this nation's highest office and to the 40 men who have occupied it since Washington took his oath. Like the office they commemorate, presidential libraries are living institutions. Certainly it is my hope that the Reagan Library will become a dynamic intellectual forum where scholars interpret the past and policymakers debate the future. It is said that after leaving the White House, Harry Truman once came into his living room to discover his wife Bess tossing their old love letters into the fireplace. "Think of history," said a horrified Mr. Truman. "I have," said Bess.